I know you're waiting for it, but I'm not opening the doors today because it's roasting, so bye. Hello, my name's Oliver and welcome to my workshop. In last week's video we got the engine in, and in this week's video it will run. It's going to be a bit of a mission, but that's what the plan is. We've got a fuel tank to put in, we've got all the wiring to finish. I've done a little bit of tidying up between videos because it's very OCD and time consuming, and I've done a little bit of sorting out, but we've still got the spare wheel rack to put in, still got the battery to hook up, we've still got, like I said, the fuel tank to put in, fuel sender, all of that stuff, and of course the whole front of the car to put back on. But by the, and a lot of dynamite in today because I took off all the old dynamite. But by the end of this video, this engine, no matter how many days that takes me in my time, but in the next, whatever it is, between 30 and 45 minutes, you will watch this engine start. Right. So first jobs first, let's start with something easy. I've got some extra pimp gold exhaust clamps that are correct size this time, and the exhaust clamps that are on here are garbage, so we're going to take all of the exhaust clamps off and replace them with gold exhaust clamps because gold is best, bro. And okay, the original bolts are not 11mm.
13.
Wonderful. I should also explain, these are not original factory exhaust clamps. These are bad quality reproductions. And they were bought at a time when we didn't know better. They came with a kit, and if we had have known better, we'd have ordered the top quality ones because they're terrible. We had a nightmare making them seal. And my advice to anybody buying a new 2CV exhaust out there, if the kit comes with clamps, make sure they're the top quality ones, and if they're not, don't bother even looking at the rubbish quality ones. This is your nice cast, super strong and very pretty looking exhaust clamp, which is like a factory style one, and this is a flat steel stamped piece of trash really. It's not even worth it.
Something about engines that calms me down, you know?
Oh, come on, will you just fit, you absolute sod. Okay, so this is the filming of eating humble pie. Basically, we've been fighting these exhaust clamps for ages. Hot, sweaty, not thinking straight. And then Dad says to me, we're doing this wrong here. Let's try the other exhaust clamps. Remember the exhaust clamps we bought last week that were too big? It turns out that there's a mix. This clamp down here is the smaller one. But this clamp up here and this one under here are the bigger ones. So if you have a stainless steel exhaust for a 2CV, you'll need one smaller one and 4 of the bigger ones. But now we know that, we know. I just wish that came before all of the frustration. To put it mildly. That's another lesson I've learned with these. When you're putting them all on, you don't tighten them all up completely until you've got them all on and seated. And then that way you're not putting a lot of stress on the ends of the clamps, especially on the older cars. It's really easy on the old manifold. In fact, I've got one here. I can show you. On the old manifold, it's really easy to pull this fitting off because it's kind of just like pushed on and barely welded, and the exhaust goes around the front of the car. And it's really easy when people put an exhaust on, they bolt it all up and then they come to do this bit and it's just slightly out of line, and they end up fighting it and pulling it, and what they do is they pull this off, and that then, you've made a lot of work for yourself. So the best thing to do is get it all in very loosely, get this on, and then tighten everything up. We've even loosened the exhaust where it bolts to the gearbox. That's the one thing that's much easier with this exhaust than the earlier exhaust, because the earlier exhaust goes under here. 449s for the top, and then one of the small ones down at the bottom.
47.
47. There you go. And that's for this engine. Results may vary, so measure your stuff before you need it.
Don't do what we did.
Don't do what we do. They're really easy to put in the wrong way around with the coils. When you've had everything off. It's a little bit counterintuitive. Go. I'm getting ready to fit the new fuel tank, but if you've ever wondered how your fuel gauge works, this is a fuel sender. And it's very simple. You've got a tube here with a mesh gator on it, whoop, also losing screws, and this is the thing that actually does the fuel gauge. And you've got your power line here, and you've got your earth there, and in here there's a metal strip and a contact. And as the float goes up, it sends a signal to the car. Now it should send a signal to the car. However, 2CV fuel gauges are notoriously a bit naff. This one actually is very good, which is why we're not going to mess with it at all. This one actually works. But what can often happen is they get a bit worn. Also, the quality of them isn't great in some models, and there's a little bit of give. And what can happen is, as the car goes along, the fuel slushes from one side of the tank to the other, the float moves around like this, and your needle swings around on your fuel gauge. What can also happen is, if you've got a voltage problem on your car, your fuel gauge will dance about, and it's one of the first signs of poor voltage on a 2CV. So the way to get it in is to lay it down like that, pop it in, thusly, get it round the corner, and then just pop that in like that. Now, I have also put a piece of old t-shirt on the end here. That is so that we don't drop anything in the fuel tank until we get the fuel filler on, because the last thing that you want is dirt in your brand new fuel tank. So much better. That's ready to go in now. And this is the weird fuel line that's used on a 2CV. And apparently it's ethanol safe plastic. I don't know. The fuel line on my car is made of brass, so I can't say what it's like. But apparently, you 2CV6 people use it and it's fine. So I don't know. I wouldn't put it on Pandora, but and of course, this travels down the outside of the chassis all the way along, and is held in place by clips. And we have new clips to put into the chassis. So that's going to be the next job. On a fuel filter, you have an arrow. In fact, on this fuel filter, there's two arrows. There's one here, and there's one there to make it extra idiot-proof, right? And it's like the arrow of time, but it's your arrow of flow. You put your Jubilee clip on first, in a manner which you can tighten it up afterwards. Dad got this fuel filter from the Franzone, where he gets all his parts from. But when I bought my car, I didn't have a fuel filter at all. And so I got mine from the local hardware store. I think it's for a ride-on lawnmower, but it was in the gardenware section, and it's actually bigger than this. But it's the exact same thing. It's just a bit bigger. Right, now we need a length of hose.
Got any hose?
Hose?
Hose.
Right, so I've got my CP Re de Franzone camping cup. It's just useful for the workshop. I didn't buy it. If you do a really big order, they give you one for free. You can buy them. I think they're like €5 or something, right? And we have our length of hose. Now, I'm going to pop my length of hose in the boiling water for a moment and just let it soften up. Now, I will say, on my car, I don't have my filter on the chassis like this. I have it halfway up where it can be seen, checked and changed. But on this car, because it's a Dyane, the bumper actually attaches here. So we're going to put it in the factory location. Mine doesn't have a factory location, so that's why I put mine there. I've never done a fuel hose like this, but using boiling water is a trick that I've used for years and years and years and years. Anytime you've got a really tight hose, it can often help. So, tap the water off, and oh no, it's all floppy. According to comments on the video where I removed the tank, the absence of Jubilee clips is a factory thing, but I refuse not to use Jubilee clips. I actually prefer, if I'm completely honest, the OEM style ones that you get on a lot of cars, that you pinch together with a pair of pliers and then just slide back. They're not as strong as Jubilee clips, but I do prefer them. And a cable tie just to keep things neat. And the clips, simply press it into the holes. With great difficulty, like that. And then the holders fit in with a click. Like that. There you go. It's a bit of a tricky operation, is this, because there's no good time to put this in. It's always in the way, no matter when you put it in. The bolts will be painted up once they're in. You can't really do too much with old bolts like this. Yeah, anytime I do anything with batteries, I always say this, but always check if you've got a sealed battery, a modern battery, always check the date on it, because out-of-date batteries can actually explode. I've had it happen to an old boat of mine. And actually, I wasn't in the boat at the time. You were, weren't you?
Yeah. I just went way back. The whole battery just disintegrated. Luckily, it was in a battery box.
Yeah, a lead-lined battery box. Now, this thing, we're not actually sure what this is. It was connected to the chassis, and there is a stud on the bottom of the spare wheel holder / battery box thing. And I think that it's just like a support for it. So I'm going to put this in, and Dad is making up an engine earth, because this engine didn't have an earth strap. And my engine didn't have an earth strap, and when my engine didn't have an earth strap, for those who don't know, it melted its voltage regulator together. And I had to separate the voltage regulator and sand it all up and try and make the contacts nice and everything. And it also killed my starter motor. So I'm a big believer in, if it doesn't have an earth it. And it doesn't have an earth, so we're going to earth it. So our next job is to paint this trough. It would have been a good idea to do it before we put the engine in, but quite frankly we forgot. So now it's time for that. And if you're putting masking tape on fresh paint and you don't want your masking tape to take your fresh paint off, the best thing to do is to tap it like this on your t-shirt, and that will take some of the sticky off it and prevent it from lifting all your brand new paint off. Whose idea was it to paint the firewall white? I can't see. I'm blind.
Not white, it's grey.
It's flipping off white, light grey, whatever. But it's I'm going to be snow blind by the time I've masked this up. It's the sun is bouncing off it. there's a slight problem with this. Because this seal is not available, what we're going to do, and because I would have to destroy it in order to remove it, it's not as easy as just like quickly removing it. I'm actually going to get some wide masking tape and I'm just going to tape it back like this, and so we can paint up to it, rather than trying to take it off and maybe destroying it. For masking tape, we're using a Auto from what year? 2017. It's a bit like Auto Trader, but they also do a bit of journalism as well. It's not always ideal when you just need to do a touch-up in a small area to be mixing paint and using compressors and all of that kind of thing. And you can buy 2CV paint in rattle cans from 2CV parts retailers. Now, this is from Renov 2CV here in France, and I've had a huge problem with this stuff. The guy who painted my car originally probably used rattle can, and he told me that he used Renov 2CV's paint. And I went to Renov 2CV, bought rattle cans when I needed to do a touch up, and it was absolutely perfect. I later bought their big mix tins to do compressor spraying, and it was the wrong colour. And you just can't colour match between the spray cans and what comes as a mixed paint, unfortunately, from this company. And so when I finally repaint Jolene, I won't be using this stuff. But it just so happens we have a couple of these tins for the Dyane, and that colour matching is perfect. So it might be worth just testing the paint first before you start spraying a car with it, if you've never used a 2CV paint rattle can before. It just so happens that this is absolutely spot on and perfect. And yeah, just test it before you use it if you've never used one before, if you're trying to colour match existing paint. There is the paint code for a Dyane on a little stainless steel disc that's riveted to that side of the firewall as well. So if you don't know what your paint code is, if it's been painted over with, I don't know, Hammerite or something. I've seen 2CVs painted with house paint, Hammerite, all sorts of horrible stuff. And if you are doing your 2CV up, there should be a little disc in that corner, hopefully, and that should tell you what your original paint code is. So while the paint dries, I'm going to pop this in. Now, originally, the plastic holes went over the axle, but because we have braided superior quality fuel line, what we're actually going to do is we're going to put this over the axle and connect the fuel line on the chassis. It's more a peace of mind thing, and it's just better and safer, because it's a bit scary, is that transparent fuel line. Obviously it's fine because 2CVs have been using it for decades, but this stuff is more abrasion resistant, it's more vibration resistant, and anything that you can do to help prevent fire is a good thing.
So remember, only you can prevent forest fires.
I'm not going to lie, that fuel tank fitting was a bit of a nightmare. In the end I had to hand it off to Dad. I got it as close as I could get it, and it didn't quite line up. Now, it is a third-party manufacturer thing, but we had to slightly widen, only by, I don't know, 3mm or something, one of the slots. I filed it out, but I was just too big, I think, under the car, and I just couldn't manage to wrestle it into the right place. Dad managed to do it in the end, because I lost my temper. And once I lose my temper, the best thing for me to do is kind of just step away, have a minute. And Dad stepped in, and he frustratedly managed to get it in. I think he's a bit smaller than me, and a bit more experienced and whatever, but he managed in the end, and that's the important thing. Don't matter who gets it in, as long as somebody does.
Okay, now, so we're going to refit the clutch cable. So it goes in there and all the way. Cable pulls through, lifts up the pedal, and it's that simple. Now the clutch is attached, but it's not adjusted. Got to adjust up the clutch. Just shift right up, but you don't want it to put any pressure on the clutch release arm, so you need to adjust it all the way up. when it's adjusted up, you need to just back it off a little bit, a couple of millimeters. So that's it. That way it doesn't apply any pressure on the clutch. And now this is the lock nut that needs adjusted all the way to the top.
Exhaust time. The exhaust hanger bolts on from the inside out. Right, so again we've loosened this, so that's got some movement in it, and that'll help us get the exhaust lined up. Hang on, let me slide my slide. Come on. I suppose it could go a teensy bit more. We're on the final stretch now. All we have to do is change the brake fluid, change the oil, and of course put in some motion lotion, and we're ready to run.
When you're doing this, it's important not to get any brake fluid drips on your car because it takes the paint off.
And it's not LHM, even though it's green, it's just from Carrefour. Some 2CVs and Dyanes do have LHM brakes, but they're the disc brake cars. And LHM is basically hydroelastic fluid. It's what's in a lot of Rolls Royce and Citroen DS suspension, and also it's hydroelastic fluid. And if you have LHM brakes, you can only use LHM brake components. There was someone asked me the other day about doing the Mongol rally, and they're going to build a 2CV to drive to Mongolia, as my friends did actually. And I suggested going with a drum brake car, because if you have problems with LHM brakes, where are you going to get LHM in Mongolia? Like if you pull a brake line off, you can get a brake line and you get brake fluid, but you can't necessarily get an LHM brake line, you know, an LHM fluid. So if you're building an expedition car, the big drum brakes are the best, in my opinion.
Never put normal brake fluid in a LHM car, because in 24 hours your whole brake system will be ruined.
So I'm going to drain the oil now. Anytime you have the wings off a Dyane is a really good time to change the oil filter. There's a special tool sold by Citroen to remove the oil filter, which is here, unlike my car which doesn't have an oil filter, it lives there. And it's almost impossible to get off with the wings in place. The oil change plastic bag trick. Obviously, put your hand in a bag. Little bags work best, like sandwich bags and dog poo bags. Right? And you push one corner in, like that. Make yourself a little glove. And what this does is it stops you dropping your sump plug in the oil drain pan. Also stops your hand getting covered in oil. Here we go, look. Because you push the corner in, it grabs the sump plug in the corner of the bag. You can buy 2CV air filters and oil filters in bulk, which is what my dad did. Order a few of them, and then you've always got it plenty in stock. Then anytime you take your wing off, even if you're doing something else, you can be like, well, while I'm here, give her an early oil change. There's nothing wrong with regular oil changes. Remember to put a little bit of oil, just normal engine oil, on your filter seal before you put your new filter in, and make sure that the old filter seal is still on the old filter. One of the most common causes of oil leaks on cars is the old filter leaving its seal on the engine, and then someone screwing a new filter on top of that, and the two seals don't seal to each other. Ta-da! Okay, we've got our new copper washer on. Always use a new copper washer. They're not expensive, don't be cheap. And you just want to tighten it up enough to crush the washer. There's no need to go crazy. The reason why I say to always use a new copper washer is because the copper washer does two jobs. One, it forms a seal between the sump plug and the block itself. And two, it holds the sump plug in and stops the sump plug coming out. And if all the engine oil falls out of your engine while you're on the motorway, it could actually cost you an engine. And sump plugs are the copper washers, are really cheap. So and you can buy packs of multiples. So there's no reason, if you're ever going to do an oil change, not to change it. It's silly to risk your engine for the sake of a 20-cent washer. I'm using 15W40's mineral oil by Total, because it's actually Total made the original engine oil for this engine, and it's what I get from the supermarket. Now, don't use synthetic or semi-synthetic in a 2CV ever. Only use what the engine was designed to run on. More modern oils don't necessarily help classic engines, because all of the clearances and the oil gaps in the engine are designed for a specific oil. Some people in summer go for a thicker oil because the oil thins with heat, but unless you're going to Death Valley in the middle of summer, I don't really see the need to. Here, it gets to 45 degrees, and we've never ever had a problem with oil at all, or overheating or anything. Maybe if you were going up mountains and it was, if you want the Atlas Mountains or whatever, you might consider going for something thicker. And the 2CV engine takes 2.5 litres, so that's there. An old school trick: if you hold your oil sideways, it doesn't glug as much, so you won't spill any. And before you say something in the comments, we have multiple green funnels. You can buy them in a pack. Because I will get comment using the same green funnel to top up your engine oil and your brake fluid. You mad? Yes, but also not the same funnel. Also, handy tip: always check the oil level on your old oil can before you start decanting your oil, because there's nothing worse than overfilling it and pouring old engine oil all over your garage. Not that I've ever done that. Now, before driving this car, we are going to completely change the brake fluid, bleed the brakes, and adjust the brakes both front and rear. However, I really want to say that I will not show brake adjustment in a video, and the reason I won't do it is because if you follow the instructions wrong, or you skip a step or whatever, and somebody gets hurt, yourself or someone else, I don't want to be any part of that. So in the case of brakes, if you don't know how to do it and do it safely, or you're not confident in doing it, it is really one of those jobs that I advise you to consult a professional about and get them to show you one-on-one how to do it yourself, or just get them to do it. It doesn't have to be done that often, so it's a really simple thing. But when it's something that comes to public safety, you know, if I show you how to do something on your engine and you don't do it properly and your engine blows up, that's on you, right? But nobody else is going to get hurt. Whereas with brakes, it's not just a personal safety thing, it's a public safety thing. So if in doubt, consult a professional. Other than the fact that I think we may have forgotten to tighten up one of the exhaust clamps. Once the exhaust cools down, we just need to tighten up that exhaust clamp and put some cable ties on the heater hoses, and job's a good one. Once the air had cleared from the system, it ran absolutely beautifully. I'm really, really happy with the work that we've done. I'm especially proud of this engine bay because the one thing that my mum asked for with this car was that the engine bay look as good on this car as it does on my 2CV. And I spent a long time cleaning and tidying my engine bay and my 2CV, things like just tidying up the wiring and things like that. But I'm really, really happy with what we've managed to accomplish in quite a short amount of time. And yeah, it runs. It runs. It's not rusty. The chassis is clean. It's got new engine oil in it. The brakes work. Just everything. I'm so happy. So thank you all for watching. If you want to support this channel and you want to support these projects and you want to help us make the content that you like watching, then make sure that you subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, share these videos with your friends on social media. Tell your friends about these videos at work and get people watching these videos, because the more people watch, the better it is for me to make more. So thank you all for your support. Thank you all for watching. If you want to watch more, there is some Pandora videos down there, there's some Jolene videos up there, and there's some Dyane videos there, and of course there's a button with my face on it. Click on my face to subscribe. Thank you all for watching. Please be awesome to each other, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.